Hello, Neural Network listeners. My name is Vasu, and here is part two of our interview with Professor Carolyn Rosé from Carnegie Mellon University. We hope you enjoy and tune in next week for an interview with a different professor.
Honestly, I 100% agree with you. I mean, not to keep on jumping back to my own personal experiences, but in my English class, we actually use this Socratic seminar a lot. And if it the way our teacher, I know obviously for college students it's a lot different, but the way our teacher incentivizes us to talk, she basically says, "Okay, guys, if you speak, you get participation points." And obviously, that's not the best way to draw out an argument, but if the Socratic seminar works for a bunch of sweaty 16-year-old high school students, and it could work for anyone realistically. Um,
That's a good point.
I just want to talk a little bit more about actually kind of get into some of the projects that you're proud of and you're willing to share with us today. I mean, for example, the dance project or the MOOC project and some of your educational research as well.
Yeah, okay. I am just trying to think which project should I talk about. Right now I am part of a project that's funded by the National Science Foundation that is about supporting the transition from formal learning into the workplace. And actually we partner with community colleges, and we try to work within their classrooms the same way that we work in any classroom. But then we also have been looking for how can we actually build some transitional activities that are kind of spanning between classroom learning and the workplace. And so a group of team members have been developing some a simulation and a simulated workplace, basically, where students can do kind of what we're calling a simulated internship. And in where we give them a task that would be almost like at the level of a project that a team in the workplace might do over a couple of months, and they will work together. But because it's a simulated workplace, first of all, we can control the conditions under which they're working. So we can, put in challenges, but we can make sure that they're just at the level of difficulty that's valuable. And we can offer support just in time. And so we're still sort of developing the concept, but I do think that this idea of bridging from the classroom into the workplace, and ultimately then figuring out what that teaches us about how we can continue to support on-the-job learning. So after they've already moved into the workplace, will they be able to continue to learn? Will they find those opportunities to make the entire workforce more able to keep up with the changes in technology and the changing demands of them in the workplace? So there's a lot still to do on that agenda, but I'm excited to have the opportunity to do that. So that's one of the projects that I'm very proud to have the opportunity to be part of. I also have a project where I'm working with an organization called the Concord Consortium. They're in the Boston area, so I guess they're close to you. They develop technologies to support learning, and I'm working with a researcher there, Jay Chow, and we're developing a curriculum for introducing students at the middle school level to text mining concepts and giving people opportunities for hands-on work with machine learning as a way of kind of giving people a taste of what they might be able to do later in their professional life, but also just to give them a sense of how AI works towards helping them to have a kind of reasonable, critical eye when they hear a lot of the media hype and fear, so that they can say, this part of it seems maybe reasonable, but you know what? I just think that's an exaggeration. I want people to be able to hear that and have a reasonable view. And I feel like that's also a really exciting opportunity. I'm happy to be part of that. You may or may not be aware that there's actually a whole nationwide effort, which partly started at Carnegie Mellon University with Professor Dave Turetsky's work called AI for K-12, which is a whole effort nationwide to develop standards for what kids need to learn about artificial intelligence at different stages in their education. And the idea is to help to prepare them for the world that where artificial intelligence is actually more and more being integrated with lots of the tools and technologies that we have around the house and everywhere, really. We see a lot of automation. Every time I travel, there are fewer and fewer people working in airports to, keep us fed and all that. So I'm happy to be part of that too, because I feel like the education aspect of all of it is every bit as important as actually pushing the capabilities of the technology forward.
Yeah, that movement sound or like the AI for K-12 sounds really interesting. I know especially like I've had like cases where people have like asked me like parents have asked me if like their kids like how like they should get into artificial intelligence, and I kind of just like give like kind of ambiguous answers, like work on projects, stuff like that. But having like a curriculum like that just like get kids interested would be huge, especially just considering how big of a field that AI is and how it's growing. And also as you mentioned, like the getting like transitioning from kids from people or transitioning for kids from school to the workplace is also like huge. Like actually me and Sid were both like kind of working on like figuring out like, a curriculum ourselves for like how high school students would get more involved in I guess just preparing for a professional setting. And that could be like interviews, like resumes, applications, all like a whole bunch of different aspects of it. I think the simulation thing that you mentioned with having a controlled environment where kids could work in a team, that's something that can blew my mind a little bit, just because of like how it's a really novel solution to the problem, and I think it's really cool. And I believe Sid did have like another question about text mining.
Yeah, so I was actually curious. So I know you said that, so you're talking and discussing with some Boston like researcher professor regarding text mining. Could you discuss a little bit more about that? Because obviously, like teaching, like I don't know too much about text mining, but like teaching that to middle schoolers itself seems like an advanced topic. So I'm just wondering how you guys are able to counter that or kind of climb over that wall.
Yeah, so the project is called StoryQ, and you might look it up on the internet after this if you wanted to see a little bit about it. They have a nice website on their company website that about each project that they house, as it were. So we're building on an earlier project called CodeApp, which was designed to introduce kids to data science. And so it's a platform where students can get access to data sets. And then there are graphical user interface widgets that allow them to interact with modeling tools and visualization tools and lead them step by step to do activities with data sets that have been carefully picked out, to have patterns that they can reason about to teach them about those processes. And so it really data science eventually, when you're learning how to do it in your job, is involves a lot of big, messy data that it's complicated to and time consuming, really time consuming to work with. And if we want people to get a taste of that, we really have to get them right to where the action is quickly. And so we make those experiences very close, like available at a button press, where if you were doing that as your work, you'd have to do a lot of work to get to that place where you just press the button and you see something. So it's almost like those cooking shows where they pull something out and say, and here's one I prepared earlier. So that's the kind of style. And so we took that style that had already been very effective in their past work in classrooms in the data science space and transformed it to be useful to get students to interact with data the way a text mining researcher would. But again, giving them sort of already prepared parts that are available at a button press so that they can see the process, but they don't have to know all the details of that process. We abstract out the experiences. And so what we've worked to do is to think about what is it that we really need students to understand about this. And so lots of different research groups are developing technology, like units like this. So MIT has one, and the ones in various other places. Lots of them focus on the building of a model and using it for some application. But we really wanted students to think about the data. And that's, again, one reason why it's valuable to build on this CODAP foundation, where they had already been doing work in data science that we were building on. But I teach a class called Applied Machine Learning at Carnegie Mellon, and that class is also really about a focus on the data and what it takes to get data in its raw form and turn it into a form that's useful for learning the kinds of things that we want machine learned models to be able to do. And so I help people to think through how it is that when you take the raw data and you turn it into a kind of simplified representation, to turn it into the shape that it has to be to go into a machine learned model, you're removing a lot of information. And you have to be careful about the information that you're removing. And that's what I want students to think about. So right now, what we're doing is we're developing a curriculum with lessons that go into lots of different classes: English language arts, math, computer science, history, social studies. And all of these classes help us to understand the world in ways that help us to see what there is to preserve in the raw data, depending upon what it is that we want these models to be able to do. And so in having the opportunity to do units in lots of different kinds of classes, we can really introduce that focus on the data itself. Algorithms then are a little bit in the background, and I don't feel bad about that, because I think there's lots of work that people are doing already to try to make the algorithms comprehensible. But what I don't want to happen in the world is that people really grow up believing that the most important thing about artificial intelligence is those algorithms, and that the algorithms are out there doing stuff. The algorithms, they're really data science algorithms at heart. And the important thing is the data. And you have to know something about the data in order to know how to use those algorithms to bring out the patterns that are relevant for a particular application. And so actually, everything you're doing in all of your classes is relevant because it's teaching you about the world. And the more you know about the world, the more you will be capable of making those choices about how to transform raw data into the input to the algorithms so that you preserve the part of that data that is needed for the learning.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Like I know, like especially like in some of my school projects, like we have like a math modeling class. We like do like a bunch of like a lot of more like hands-on like I guess modeling real world scenarios. And I think like in that case, it combines like a lot of stuff. Like it combines like the data aspect, the analysis aspect, the algorithm aspect. And as you mentioned, like the emphasis on data is like it's like a huge thing, especially like in those situations. Because like for us, like actually making the algorithm itself, that can kind of come after. But like finding relevant data and finding out how we can analyze that, that's like just the most important part of it. So that is a great point that you brought up. And also like when talking about like younger children, another like cool part we noticed on some of your work was that you guys talked about measuring socio-emotional development with younger children. So it's a little bit more of your older research, but we were kind of wondering if you could share some more about that.
Yeah. So we were looking at that in a very limited way, but what we wanted to know was whether we're able to teach students strategies in how they relate to each other that they continue to apply going forward from any of those experiences. And so we did develop a way that we were measuring that. And to be honest, it was so long ago, the details are not so clear in my mind. But what I would say is that there's a real challenge. I think that I think there's more and more awareness that actually social skills in general are things that that schools should be focusing on helping students develop, because there was a time, recently when we were all very isolated from one another. And at the college level, we're seeing it, that there are ways in which, that's continuing to impact people. So I would say that experience would say that it's not an easy problem to fix. And I don't think there's a simple, okay, we're going to develop some LLM that's going to fix the whole thing. And I do think that there are people working on applications that are aiming in that area. I guess I would say that a lot of work on assessment for things like social skills shows that people can learn very easily what they should do, but actually doing it is hard. And actually making a lasting change is hard and requires a concerted effort. But I do think there's work to be done in that space, and it should be treated as very important. And I think those are the big lessons learned from that project going forward.
Yep, makes sense. And we're kind of running towards the latter part of the interview. So you just have like one final question for fun. So we noticed that you like Israeli folk dancing from your website.
Oh yeah.
So you're kind of wondering how you got into that and what's it like?
Oh, okay. How did I get into it? I'm trying to think, when was the first time? I guess what happened was, in my undergrad years, I had the opportunity to spend a month the summer after my freshman year at the Brandeis Bardeen Institute in Southern California. And we had the opportunity to pick some area of arts that was connected to Israel and Israeli culture. And so I tried Israeli folk dancing, and at first I was horrible at it. I was the biggest klutz, I think, in the class, but I liked it. It's very energizing. And so then I looked for opportunities to be able to do that again. And I didn't have the regular opportunity to do it again until I came to Pittsburgh. And actually, there's a group that meets every week still. And for years, I went religiously. I say that as a joke, not really religiously, but yeah, I went like every week, even with my daughter when she was small. We used to do that together. And I think it just, it's a good stress reliever. And I guess, in the spirit of take-home messages, I would say, to anyone out there, when you're thinking about how can you use your educational experiences best, how can you shape your future best, in addition to, it takes a lot of discipline and hard work, but I think that it's important to take care of yourself. You need to eat well, you need to sleep regularly, eat regularly, take really good care of yourself, because life is a long haul. And the more you can build health into your life, the better able you'll be to really move forward with gusto as you pursue your career.
Yeah, it's a really, really niche way of relieving stress. I think it's really fun. I'll definitely have to give it a try myself. But thank you so much for joining us today. And you provided
No problem. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much. Again, just have a really nice rest of your day. And
you too.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye.